see cars coming out onto the track in just a moment or two's time. There are a few new drivers. We saw Narain Karthikeyan there, who will be competing for India for the first time, and he's been right on the pace all weekend. We've also got Loic Duval driving for Team France this weekend. He has been their rookie driver, but it's the first time he'll qualify. Alex Khatib driving for Lebanon, and another new driver, Ryan Hunter-Reay, who'll be driving for Team USA. On track, the first car, however, is a driver who's been contesting the A1 races so far this season, and that's Nur Ali for Team Pakistan.
Yes, and I think very sensibly for Nur Ali, he's gone first out on track, and he'll have pretty much a clear track. We don't see anybody else down the pit lane preparing to go out, and for Nur Ali, it's this progress that started at the beginning of Series 2, and he's still in that learning phase. But do your lap when the track is clear. You've got no pressure on you, there's nobody behind you to worry about. You've got clear track ahead, and get a strong, solid lap in early in your session, and progress from that over the next 3 sessions.
Loic Duval driving for Team France this weekend is not Nicolas Lapierre, who's done all the driving duties in the races so far this year. But this young man is very impressive. He's been very fast in the rookie sessions that he's done so far. At Zandvoort, he was fastest. In the Czech Republic, he was quickest as well. This weekend, he was fastest on Friday morning, 3rd quickest in the afternoon session on Friday. Bang on the pace again this morning, and we're expecting good things. There, however, is the man who did set the fastest time here today. Saturday morning's practice session went to Johnny Reid of New Zealand with a last lap dash to the flag to prove he's going to be in the battle for pole position.
You can look at a racing driver and say he looks quick, but you look at Johnny Reid and you think he looks like he's got a babyish face. You can't imagine that he gets into that racing car and just literally obliterates the opposition, but that's what Johnny Reid does. He's got the looks, but he's got the skill and the speed to go with it, and as I say, he's become a superstar in New Zealand. If he wins here, he'll become Sir Johnny Reid, I reckon.
Well, let's see how Nur Ali's getting on. John, he's on the fairly early part of the lap, but this is where getting the rhythm through this section is so vital.
Yeah, he's going through turn 5. That's a corner that caught a lot of people out in the practice sessions from Friday all the way through till Saturday morning, but Nur Ali gets through it cleanly, and now out of turn 7 accelerates out. This is the quickest part of the racetrack prior to getting onto the main straight. Flat out through turn 8, then on the brakes, possibly down a gear through turn 9. Difficult to see the apex, and also it's a bumpy part of the racetrack. A lot of cars suffering from the bumps, and in particular the tram landing effect of those bumps as you make your entry into turn 9.
So this is the corner, turn 11, that leads on to the long straight. Got to get a good exit, and he was hard on the power pretty early there. That was good to hear. His target time really is what he set this morning, a 1:18.904. He's chipping away, just trying to get quicker and quicker. So that's his initial target, and we'll see if he beats that into the final sequence now.
So down into this is turn 13, then immediately leading into turn 14. 13's more about positioning the car to get a good run off turn 14, but way off the best he achieved this morning. That's some 3 seconds slower than, or 2.5 seconds to be accurate, slower than he achieved in that final practice session. But this really is a sighting lap for pretty much everybody, in particular for Nur Ali, who's not as experienced as many of the other drivers in the field. So he'll learn from that and he'll go away, but also everybody else will have watched that lap and they'll think, hold on a second, track temperatures have changed, ambient is 20, track temperature 37. How different is that to when we were out some 2 hours ago, and what effect is that going to have on the track itself?
Alan van der Merwe in the middle there. He's not in the car at the moment. He's waiting obviously until later in this 15-minute session. It's not a long time though, so presumably he'll be getting ready soon. He raced for South Africa last time out in Indonesia, and he's back again this weekend for South Africa. They had the one victory earlier in the year with Adrian Zaub. That was at Zandvoort, the very first race meeting of the season. And now Alan van der Merwe, the 26-year-old former British F3 champion and a test driver for Honda in Formula 1, will have his opportunity here today. Team China will obviously be looking for another good performance. They've got their driver Ho Pin Tung back in the car, who also tested the Indonesia event. Not Frankie Cheng, who was in the car in the early stages of the season. Ho Pin qualified 12th last time out in Indonesia, and he'll be looking to go slightly better. But the next to take to the track is Alex Khatib, driving for Team Lebanon.
So again, fairly sensibly, drivers who haven't got the experience of those at the front are getting out on the clear racetrack. We've just got under 10.5 minutes of this session remaining, and I just wonder the wisdom of waiting very much longer. I'd like to see a few more of the front-running cars considering going out, because if everybody chooses to go out towards the latter part of this first 15-minute session, we're going to see the inevitable. That's congestion on a racetrack. Cars on out laps as cars are doing flying laps, cars coming in, or, it becomes a mess. And this is a busy racetrack. particularly the first half of it up to turn 7. It's very tight. There's not much room to give way, even if you're on a slowing down lap to a quicker car.
He's certainly attacking, isn't he? This is only his out lap, and Alex sliding the car around a bit. He's got to be a bit careful not to get too carried away on the out lap. He's got to build the speed up for the one single flying lap. That's the only lap that counts towards his qualifying performance. And remember, it's not just one quick lap. They've got to get their fastest 2 laps from the 4 segments, add them together, and that will give them their grid position.
Well, Alex Khatib, like many others, were a lot quicker, as we've seen from the Pakistan time in that final third session. So Alex Khatib's benchmark time is a 1 minute 15.5. So anything that's slower than that, he'll be disappointed. Anything that's faster than that, he'll feel he's made further progress.
Relatively inexperienced is Alex. He's 22 years old, of Lebanese heritage, but actually lives in Bath in the UK. There's his teammate Khalil Bashir, who's here to support him and keep an eye on things. And leaning over the counter there is their driver coach, Pedro Chavez. And he was telling me just a little bit earlier that he's very impressed with Alex's approach. He's been pushing hard this weekend and doesn't forgive himself any mistakes he makes. He really wants to make an impression this weekend. Basil Shaban, Khalil himself. And
he spun down at turn 7, so it's gone wrong for Lebanon. He spun the car to this, and he's now found himself in a situation where he's going to drive over the curbs. He's done that, he's on the grass, and he's getting back on the racetrack. So, first official qualifying session for Lebanon. Well, you can put that one in the bin.
Yeah, unfortunately, Alex got it wrong, so maybe trying a little bit too hard. Let's see how he did it.
Well, just a little bit too quick, maybe on the brakes, turning in at the same time, and as a consequence, the back swung round. I suspect also with a fresh set of tyres, he may have been using... Most teams will have 3 brand new sets of tyres. They will choose then the best of the rest of the sets that they've used so far. Whether that was a new set or a used set, but certainly he's 1 down and no score.
Now this is an interesting one. This is Team India coming out on track. India have never scored any points in A1GP. They're in their 2nd full season, but they've never had a driver of this quality behind the wheel before. This is Narain Karthikeyan, labelled the fastest Indian in the world. He's had experience in Formula 1. He had a whole season in 2005. He's been a test driver for Williams for the last couple of years. He knows how to drive a racing car quickly, and although he's not sat in the car before this weekend at Taupo, as soon as he was in it, John, on Friday, he was right amongst the front runners.
Well, he not only is right amongst the front runners, he's been there pretty much throughout the weekend. He ended up 4th this morning, and that time is just under half a second away from Johnny Reid. And now we see Team USA also. This is what we expect. We're now there's just over 7 minutes of this session remaining, and the bulk of the field, which has been sitting in the pits watching, is now making its way out, and things are going to get very, very hectic indeed.
I tell you what, there's going to be some people who get tripped up by traffic with them all leaving it to this stage.
And I think the first of those could easily be Narain Karthikeyan, because he's the first of the quick drivers to get out on track, and the pit lane is now getting busy, cars moving down it. As cars are out on the right lap, so Karthikeyan goes on to the start of his first flying lap.
So Karthikeyan, how's he going to handle this completely unique style of qualifying? He certainly seems to be at home in the A1 car pretty fast, and he's into the first couple of sequences. Oh, he's on the grass, he's pushed too hard.
He did, you could see that as he turned into turn 2, he flung the car in. He didn't have the grip under him, the car was not there. Now, there have been cars on track from other support races. This racetrack, I think, is not the same racetrack these drivers vacated at the end of that 3rd practice session at 12 o'clock today.
Here we
Watch
go.
the car slide.
Yeah, middle of the corner, he's applying the opposite lock, and then he's just straight off.
So even Narain Karthikeyan gets caught up. We thought Alex Khatib for Lebanon was maybe inexperienced, but even the experienced ones are finding it slightly trickier than they anticipated.
Now on board with Ryan Hunter-Reay for Team USA. He's taken over the seat from Phil Giebler this weekend, and obviously he's up on the splits. You would expect that, because the time that's been set is by Pakistan so far, and Pakistan certainly haven't been up amongst the quicker cars in practice. Into turn 7, that's where Alex Khatib had his problem, but Ryan Hunter-Reay deals with it well. Plenty of experience, this young man. He's raced in champ cars in the United States. He's had a couple of wins in champ cars, and now we've got to see how he gets on in A1GP.
So he's successfully navigated turn 9. That's one of the tougher corners on the racetrack, then flat out through turn 10. It's really a curve into 11. Positioning the car, running well, he runs very wide, but he gets the car back. And the on-board view, of course, restricts what we can see. It looks like a pretty reasonable exit, then flat out down the straight, staying in the middle to the left. There's a nasty bump in the middle of the straight, so probably running the car slightly lower than normal.
So he's coming into the last sequence now, trying to keep it tidy through here. Ooh, bit of a slide, but he keeps it together. We've seen a few little spins at that section over the last day or so. He's going to go quickest by a large margin. USA fastest, a 1:17.6. How does that compare with what he did earlier?
2.5 seconds slower.
Well, that gives you an idea that the
But that's part of the reason why up in turn 11 he had a little bobble, and that cost him certainly the best part of half a second. But the track clearly, in my opinion, is not at the level it was when these cars left it just at the end of the third practice session.
So Singapore on track now. This is Christian Murchison. He earned the title of the first spinner in Friday practice, but actually he's been going pretty well since then, and he's put in some quick laps throughout the course of the practice sessions that we've had here, and ended up 14th this morning. Quick on that split, yeah.
Quickest now, that's right on board with Australia.
So Singapore fastest, that's a good lap by Christian Murchison. Second fastest now Australia. Australia with Carl Reindler at the wheel this weekend, taking over from Ryan Briscoe, who's committed elsewhere. And those are the top two cars currently in this session. USA third, India fourth, and Pakistan in fifth place. So India, despite that moment on the grass, did actually manage to beat Pakistan's time. Quite a few more cars out on track now. I can see France is out there, Switzerland. So some real possible front runners now on track, and New Zealand on track. The fastest car this morning, the one with all the home support. What can Johnny Reid do?
Well, that's big pressure on Johnny Reid's shoulders, and he probably has realised, the team have advised him, that the track isn't the same. Take it easy on that exploratory lap, get a feel for it. Now you've got your chance to go out and consolidate and do something useful. It may not be the quickest lap of the 4 sessions, but get a good strong lap in and go into session 2 feeling confident.
Netherlands joins the track just as Johnny Reid comes around turn 1, now into turn 2. Gets on the power, turn 3 coming up. That's the sort of section here where we saw Narain Karthikeyan in trouble. Gets through turn 4 safely. And now through the tighter turn 5. Things looking good so far for Johnny Reid. Keep an eye on those split times. The man who's been so impressive in qualifying in this second season of A1GP. And he was on pole position last time out, remember, in Indonesia at the Sentul circuit.
So he makes his way up into turn 9. Difficult corner to see the apex. Careful on the exit. They've actually filled in the exit of the corner there where cars were dropping wheels off. They were kicking up dust. So that's been repaired into turn 11. Not necessary to be too quick in the entry to the corner, but important to be quick off this corner to gain maximum drive.
You might think he'd had local knowledge, but remember, this track's only just been finished, so he's learning the track just like everybody else. He did race on the original Taupo club circuit, but it was very, very different to what we've got here now. So really, he's having to get used to it as much as everyone else, but this is looking like a pretty quick lap. Not in the 14s, which we saw earlier. It's a 1:15.1. He goes quickest by over 2 seconds.
So that is approximately 1 second down as we look at Germany goes second on a 1:15.6. With Johnny Reid's time 1 second off, so the track is beginning to come to these cars. The later you go out, the better the track is going to be.
China just had a bit of a moment, I noticed, through the last corner, so they've lost a bit of time on that last lap. And yes, in fact, they've just beaten India and Pakistan, but otherwise slowest of the rest. So Team China had a problem. Watch France here.
Very quick into turn 12 again. Lifting, carrying that inside wheel, very stiff across the front of that car, so clearly very stiff roll on the front of the car. Can France improve?
Yeah, let's see what it is. Fastest, yes, on our timing screens. The clock's not stopped there.
1:14.770, and that's the first driver at this session to get into the 1:14s.
So an impressive lap by Loic Duval. We said he would be a threat for qualifying. He's been quick in the rookie session and in the practice sessions that we've seen. And France have found themselves yet another rapid driver. They seem to have plenty of them in A1GP. But now keep an eye on the Netherlands. Jeroen Bleekemolen, race winner already this year in the sprint race in Beijing. And this track seems to suit him. He's been pretty quick in the top 10 throughout the practice sessions. He's out of that final corner. Is he going to challenge? Well, he goes second. He goes faster than Germany, and that's a good effort by Jeroen Bleekemolen.
And he goes faster than New Zealand as well.
Yeah, that's right. So it's France, Netherlands, New Zealand third, Switzerland fourth. Great effort by the youngster Sebastian Buemi, who's back in the Swiss car as Neil Yarni is busy elsewhere. And
that really is all a function of just the racetrack in the period of the 15-minute session that we're watching, beginning to respond to race cars being back out on it.
So still a few quick cars to go. Malaysia seemed to be struggling earlier. Let's see whether they found the answer and whether Alex Young is going to be on the pace here. The 1:14.770, well out of target range, I'm afraid, but he's gone into, what's that, 7th place. 7th position for Team Malaysia on their first run. Puts them in behind Italy and just ahead of Mexico.
We've got Ireland coming through turn 14. That was a car that performed well this morning. They were third quickest. Let's see where Ireland goes. Well, they're down in 8th spot.
And South Africa just behind them. So Ireland and South Africa have crossed the line, 7th and 8th positions for those two. Team Canada on track as well. Czech Republic's just popped in behind Ireland. It's all looking pretty close. I think these positions are likely to change a fair bit. Most of them will be using their old tyres in this first qualifying segment, and they're saving all their new sets of tyres for later.
James Hinchcliffe, one of the last cars to take start. It goes second. Canada second quickest.
Fantastic effort by James Hinchcliffe. Now, what about Great Britain? Robbie Kerr has been riding there. Been a little bit struggling because they didn't do the rookie session, and that cost them some time, and it puts them into 9th place. So 9th position for Robbie Kerr for Team Great Britain. It's France that sets the initial pace here. There's John Surtees keeping an eye on what's going on for Team GBR, but it's France on top. They haven't qualified well this season at all, but now they seem to be fully on the pace. Canada second, Netherlands third, and New Zealand fourth.
There we get a replay of Robbie Kerr, and you can see the struggle. I mean, we've been seeing this all through the 3 practice sessions where this car's been on track. And well, let's go back to the onboard views. As cars make their way back into the pits, this first 15-minute session has ended and barely, I think, has begun. France dominant with Canada second, Netherlands third. I mean, completely against the form that we saw this morning, where it was New Zealand, Germany and Ireland that were the top 3.
Already, it's the second session, and the first car out once again I think is going to be Team Pakistan, Nur Ali, and he's got one car behind him after that first session. That was the car of Lebanon, who of course had a spin themselves, and Nur Ali wants you to try and get down a bit closer to the time he set this morning.
Well, he'll have to work pretty hard as we look into the Team Ireland garage, and Richard Lyons sitting back watching work on his car. He'll be probably slightly disappointed to be down in 8th place compared to where he ended up at that 3rd practice session in 3rd, and team very confident with the changes. They made a lot of changes to this Team Ireland car, a lot of the suspension pickup points, adjustments to those to try and find the kind of balance and grip that Ireland have really struggled with throughout this second series.
Looking into the eyes there of Thomas Enger. He set the fastest time on Friday practice, but at the moment Czech Republic, well, just behind Great Britain. They're in 10th position. So they've got a little bit more work to do from there, but you know, he's perfectly capable of it. David Sears, the man who's in charge of engineering for both Germany and New Zealand, well, things looking quite good, but he'll want both of his boys up there on the front row together if at all possible. That's what they're aiming for. And of course, remember, Germany, although leading the points in A1GP, still looking for their first ever pole position.
Well, there's the working end of an A1GP car looking into Team GBR. And a lot of the work around the car has been taking place around the rear suspension. Because it's a low-speed track, a lot of emphasis is on the mechanical side of a racing car rather than on the aerodynamic side, as we see Nur Ali beginning his second attempt at qualifying, going through turn 1, then accelerating out of turn 1 up into the cambered turn 2. Tricky corner because you tend to run a little bit too far out to the left, and then that compromises your entry into turn 3 and consequently turn 4 that follows pretty much after.
So let's see if he can keep it all together, keep it nice and smooth. Remember that there are 2 times together that have to be added for their sprint race qualifying position. So you're looking at a total time from his earlier lap and then adding on to that what he does in this lap, and that'll give us a total. I notice India's gone out early again in this segment of qualifying. So Narain Karthikeyan, who made that little mistake in his first run, is back out there, and he's obviously got to make up for the mistakes earlier on. Up towards turn 11, and now on to the long straight. You can almost hear a little bit of wheel spin there. Driver trying to be smooth onto the power, but remember there's 520 horsepower in one of these A1GP cars. Plenty of grunt, no traction control. It's up to the driver to control how much throttle he puts down and how much traction he's got from the car.
And you do see how much the Pakistan car, as it comes through 13, it's ratcheting, it's sort of hopping across the bumps rather than absorbing the bumps. Well, the team think that's a better lap from Pakistan. In total time, it's 2 minutes 40.734. The last lap was 1 minute 19.379, so that's a substantial improvement for Pakistan. And certainly he'll want to keep that second run lap as one of his possible best of 2 laps. Back to India. India out early again. Narain Kathakayan comes out of turn 14 right at the very edge of the track. He's not going to make the same mistake this time that he made in the first segment of qualifying.
No, he is an attacking driver, Kathakayan, and it's always fun to watch him when he's in attack mode there. Look at the slide. Controls the oversteer beautifully and keeps it beautifully under control. He's well up on the overall split, but we've got to see what he does compared to some of the other front runners in terms of an individual lap time. Remember, last time around...
Big lock up on turn 7, lost time again.
Having to get used to how these tyres work. The A1 tyres developed by Cooper. And of course, it's not a soft qualifying style tyre. It's a tyre that is designed to be useful in all the different conditions and countries that A1GP visits, whether they're going to be very hot and muggy conditions or cooler, less warm conditions of some of the European races we go to. So he's got to deal with that, and he's got to learn about it very quickly here today. This was the moment he locked up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big mistake from a driver of that experience. But of course, this car is a totally different style of car to that he's accustomed to driving. And of course, with driving cars with carbon brakes, they do stop literally on the dime. These are cast iron brakes with traditional brake pads. Comes out of turn 14. Narain Kathakayan, 1 minute 16.316. So good lap from the Indian driver, but of course still a long way to go in comparison to where he was.
Yeah, still needs to get down into the 1 minute 15s or 1 minute 14s. That was a 1 minute 16. And so he's got plenty of work to do there. But for the moment he goes quickest because only India and Pakistan have completed 2 laps. And you've got to complete 2 laps to qualify. China back on track relatively early this time. And Ho Pin Tung, who made a little mistake, I'm sure, at the last corner on his first run, will now try and keep it clean in this second run. Remember, he's raced and won the German F3 Championship last year. He comes with pretty good credentials. And Team China, who've been building up this second season, has been much more successful for them. Frankie Cheng scoring a couple of excellent results, particularly that 4th place finish in the sprint race in the Czech Republic at Brno. That's their best to date so far, but they're 15th in the series on 8 points. And when you remember they didn't manage to get many points in the first season of A1GP, they really have made a lot of progress.
So it comes down this long 830 metres straight, 160 miles an hour coming down into turn 12. It's a corner you can carry a great deal of speed into. The difficulty is, how do you get rid of all that speed before you've got to turn right and then immediately back to the left onto turn 4 and back onto the start-finish straight.
So let's see what the lap time's like. It puts him quickest for now. It was a 1:16.3, the individual lap time. So a second and a half off the fastest time that France set in that first session, but that's good progress. And I think they'll be relatively pleased with that. Alex Khatib back out for Team Lebanon.
And he's managed to get round the lap so far without making an error. And Alex Khatib goes through and out of turn 11 down the straight. Kicks a bit of dust on the exit of the corner. Running so close to the edge of the track, there is a little drop off where the bitumen ends and the grass and the side of the track begins. So you need to be careful not to do too much of a drop off. It'll catch you out.
Now keep it tidy, Alex, don't want to make a mistake like you did on that first run. This is more like it. Good and neat and tidy exit, a little bit of a wiggle on the way out. A 1:17.4 the individual lap time, and of course he didn't have a lap time from that first session, so he'll be last after this second segment, but that's much more in the ballpark.
Well, he'll feel at least he's restored that level of confidence that he lost by making the error in his first qualifying. We look into France, Loic Duval, and the young Frenchman clearly very anxious to get back out on track to consolidate that very impressive 1 minute 14.7 time in the first segment. As we go back, repeat of Alex Khatib.
Yeah, I think he kept it really...
Now that's what I'm talking about. You drop that wheel off more than that, and there's a very good chance you'll snatch the car and it'll just go into a very quick spin and off to the left of the track. So he really let it go as far as he could go without getting penalised.
We're almost halfway through this second segment of qualifying. 7.5 minutes remain, and Team Italy now on track. Now they're currently down in 10th place. They were 8th after the first segment of qualifying. They're going to add together their second lap, so they're on the pace thereabouts, much happier with the car than they were last time out in either Malaysia or Indonesia.
Well, I tell you what, he was about 6 feet off the part of the racetrack. That's the apex of the corner than he should have been, but so far with the cumulative times he is, well, let's wait and see what he does through these final 2 turns.
Yep, so he's looking reasonably good, but as you say, he was a little bit offline. Enrico Toccacello, this is race winner in the feature race in Beijing earlier on in the season. Across the line, he does go quickest. 1:15.5 his individual lap time, so not bad, but again, not quite as quick as the French car was earlier.
And that was about 2.5, 3/10 of a second faster than his first qualifying sector time. So it's consistent. He needs to find a little bit more speed if he wants to make any impression today on getting a top 10 qualifying position for Sunday's sprint race.
Johnny Reid getting himself ready to come back out for Team New Zealand and see whether he can improve on what was fourth after the first segment. Team France also being patient. I can see Indonesia heading down the pit lane now. One or two others. China's just come back into the pits. Brazil making their way out. And one or two other cars just beginning to go on to their attempts. One of the most impressive runs in that first segment was from this young man for Team Switzerland. Ended up with the 5th quickest time. He seemed to take a little bit of time to get used to the track on Friday, but he's had a lot of support from Marcel Fassler, who was actually the rookie driver. Seems strange calling Marcel Fassler, who's 30 years old and done lots of DTM over the years, the rookie driver, but of course he's not raced much, well, hasn't raced at all in A1GP. Marcel was impressive in his rookie session, and he's been helping this youngster Sebastian Buemi, who raced at both Zandvoort and the Czech Republic, and let's see what he can do in this second segment.
And a pretty impressive young guy he is in the car. A little lock up into turn 5, but young guys tend to do that. They push, push, push. And if you've got the speed, you can find the refinement with a little bit of coaching, which Marcel Fassler no doubt is contributing to. Out of 7 now, flat out through this fairly long turn 8. It's not really much of a corner. It's about getting the car positioned for the much more difficult entry, particularly with the bumps in turn 9. And again, key to the corner is getting the good, clean exit and not dropping a wheel off the outside of the corner. And that has caught out quite a number of people here this weekend.
Getting Team France going once again. So Loic Duval out to try and defend the quickest time that he had from that first segment. But of course he needs to add a second lap to it. Team Switzerland heading down the long straight. We gather that France are on old tyres, so they're not using their brand new tyres in this second segment of qualifying. I should imagine quite a few people will leave their new tyres until the last couple of segments. So there, Switzerland gone quickest now. Great lap.
And an individual lap, 1 minute 14.875, and that's pretty much the second fastest individual lap that we've seen from anybody so far.
And it included a mistake. Look at that was a replay there we just saw of a bit of a slide through turn 11. This was something else.
That was early in that turn 5. He just grabbed the wheel turning into turn 5.
Yeah, well, turn 11 he got sideways, but he gathered it together, and actually it didn't cost him much time. He was only a tenth slower on that lap than France went in the first segment. Great lap then from Switzerland, and Sebastian Buemi on the pace here for sure. Let's see what Indonesia is doing. Ananda Mikola, again another team that didn't have a rookie driver here on Friday. Moreno Surprato wasn't here on Friday, so they lost a bit of useful track time and learning of the circuit. So Ananda's having to play catch-up ever since.
Yes, and he's really pretty much starting the field. 1 minute 16.6 was his time from that first session into turn 12. Runs the curve, then checks the speed, keeps the car pretty much in the middle of the road to give him a good entry into turn 14. Again, lets the car run out and ends the corner quite late down the straight. So Indonesia go third, 1 minute 16.8. In fact, a fractionally slower than his first lap in the first session.
Not a bad effort though. Brazil's just popped up to third, but there's lots of quick cars still to go in this session. So now it's getting busy. How much time do we have? 3 minutes and 15 seconds, counting down. And France on track to see. Oh, look at Duval. He's so impressive.
He can hook this car up through turn 2 better than anybody we've seen all weekend. Whether it's a combination of him and the car or just down to Loic Duval, I don't know, but he is very impressive through that one particular corner directly in front of our commentary position.
Brazil ahead, but Brazil I think on the outlap, so hopefully it won't hinder Team France. Yeah, Brazil's getting out of the way. I can see from our vantage point. We have a great view from our commentary position on the new pit building here, and just glancing out the window. So Duval, look at him again, flirting with the edge.
He's flirting with that outside of corner turn 9. And very quick indeed. You can see the speed he carries into turn 11. Keeps the car relatively close, hugs it all the way around, lets it go out slightly earlier than some, but appears to have sufficient bite from the car that it doesn't want to wash out too early on the exit of the corner.
The second split actually hasn't shown, but I reckon he's well up here, and France looking to defend that lead position from the first segment. He has that aggressive turn-in style, almost Fernando Alonso-like, to get the car chucked into the corner, but he has the confidence to deal with it. France go quickest. It's a 1:14.725, almost identical to his earlier lap time.
So he'll be pleased with that. That's a set of tyres that has already done one qualifying segment, so he'll be happy with that good consolidation. Currently quickest by 0.8 of a second over the two runs so far from Sebastian Buemi for Switzerland.
So it's France, Switzerland, Italy, Brazil, top 4, 5th place Indonesia, 6th Singapore, but it's all going to change in the next few minutes because all of the other quick cars are now on track. Here comes the Czech Republic across the line. They go third. Thomas Enger puts in a quick lap, third fastest for Enger.
So at 1 minute 15.3 for Enger, that's 0.6 of a second of an improvement. Germany, Nico Hülkenberg. So we saw how Germany did earlier in the session, a 1 minute 15.5. That was midway through that first qualifying segment. Nowhere near the pace of France, so it's going to be a big step up for Nico Hülkenberg. We know he's got the capacity, he just needs the clear track. I'm sure he'll deliver in this run.
Let's see what he can do then. Neat and tidy, doesn't use the extra bit to get on the grass as we've seen 1 or 2 people do. Now he's up to turn 11. This is where you've got the clean exit required for that long straight. And it looks neat and tidy through there.
Yes, a good entry to the corner, good exit. Let's hope his so-called teammate, but it's a sister engineered team, New Zealand, will get out of the way as they come down into turn 12. It's going to be fairly close. Well, that's not too bad. At least he's got a clear run. He's not going to be too distracted or affected by the Team New Zealand car. But he goes through turn 14, and let's see what Germany can do.
Germany was 6th after the first segment of qualifying. They go second now. The lap time of 1:14.726, virtually identical to the thousandths of a second to what France did just a few moments ago. It's France fastest, Germany second, Switzerland third, the Czech Republic fourth, South Africa on a lap now to see whether they can get themselves up into that top 5 perhaps. Alan van der Merwe giving it his all in his second ever qualifying performance for the team. A little bit down on the split, 1.3 seconds, but that could still put him in the top 5 or 6 places.
No, he's got a lot more to do than that because he only did a 1:16.1 in that first segment. He'll need to find a bunch of time on this lap to put himself anywhere near France, Germany or Switzerland, but it will be an improvement as the checkered flag comes out. He goes 5th quickest, 15.118, so he needs another strong lap. Really, he needs something in the 14th to put himself into the top 3 rows of the grid for Sunday's race.
The Netherlands just gone second. Netherlands have put in a great lap. We're watching New Zealand to see whether Johnny Reid can get himself to the top of the table. It's France, the Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, Ireland back up there. Ireland, oh no, they've just been pipped by Canada. Canada's gone third. It's all changed, but what can Johnny Reid do here for New Zealand?
He did a 15.1, he's gone. It hasn't gone yet, it's second.
Second fastest for Team New Zealand by 11 thousandths of a second, and he's got the fastest individual lap time that we've seen so far during qualifying. A great effort again from Johnny Reid. He's definitely in the hunt for pole position.
Well, the battle for pole position is beginning to refine itself down into essentially 6 teams. Now those are France, New Zealand, Netherlands, top 3, Canada, Germany and Switzerland, bottom 3.
Well, it's tight. We knew it would be tight, but this is showing some great form from teams that aren't necessarily expected to qualify so well. France and New Zealand. France has had a tough time with qualifying this year, but suddenly they've got the sums right, and Loic Duval has got everything right, dealing with the track perfectly well, chucking the car around with confidence. Very, very good stuff. So,
of course, still a current race driver. He drives in a series for retired and elderly racing drivers called the Masters Series, and Emerson, of course, is one of the leading lights in that. The speed and the skill and ultimately his fitness, his overall fitness and condition is probably equal to that of when he was an active racing driver in the Formula One or racing over in the States for so many years.
Well, he's keeping an eye on things down there in the pits this weekend, as you say, Rafael Matos at the wheel. But down in the Mexican pit, it's Salvador Duran. A little bit surprising to see him down in 14th position. But remember, you could see some massive changes coming up over the next 2 segments. Those teams, and it sounds like quite a few of them, who've kept their new tyres for the next 2 sessions could suddenly jump up. Remember, it's your 2 best times, so you can effectively discount whatever you've done up to this point. You've still got 2 segments of qualifying to go, and you can easily jump, in Mexico's case, from 14th right up to 1st, 2nd or 3rd if you get these next 2 segments perfectly right.
And of course that's both the challenge to the drivers and the teams, but it adds to us the excitement because we frankly have no idea who will ultimately take that pole position for the sprint race. But we look at the top of the list and think it's got to be amongst the top 6 teams that we've currently got. But of course one little error by a driver in those top 6 can put extreme pressure and gives you opportunities just one would be remaining in qualifying 4. So you've got to use the tyres effectively and not waste the opportunities.
Inside the Italian pit, and Enrico Toccocello gives us a wave, and they're currently 10th in the overall standings. I think that's certainly a boost from where they have been the last couple of events. They qualified 15th in Indonesia, 20th in Malaysia, which led to a bit of head scratching, particularly as the previous race he'd won the feature race and had qualified in 3rd. Mind you, of course, in Beijing they didn't have a proper qualifying session to actually set their times. But Italy do seem to be much more on the sort of pace we would have expected to see. Robbie Kerr for Great Britain struggling a little bit. They, as I mentioned earlier, didn't have a rookie to run that rookie session on Friday morning, so that put them on the back foot a little bit. They had work to do that had to be done in the other practice sessions, and they're just trying to catch up a little bit. He's currently 11th.
Yes, it's not been a good weekend really throughout for Robbie Kerr. He's struggled with the car. The car on many occasions has looked like a real handful. I don't know whether it's part of Robbie's driving style that actually maybe exaggerates that situation, but he does run curbs an awful lot, and he's been doing it here. He also has a car which under braking sometimes looks unpredictable. The back end has stepped out on occasions, but overall the car just doesn't look like it's a part of the racetrack compared to those cars ahead of him, who very much, I mean, in the case of Loic Duval in particular, going through turn 2, the corner directly in front of our commentary booth, I mean, it just takes the light from your eyes, the fact that he can commit so much and the car stays with them.
In the Indian pit, and notice that we've got 12 minutes to go in this segment and no one's been out yet, so it's the first time that we haven't seen anybody out early on. India has been regularly one of the first cars to go out on track. Are we going to see them again do that? Italy, I think, is the first out this time.
Yes, Enrico Toccacello taking the opportunity to get out on a clear track. We're just for a little over 11 and a half minutes of the session to go. So people being a little bit more confident possibly, and feeling that if they wait and go out maybe with 5 minutes to go, they might see an improvement. But Enrico Toccacello for Italy is first out on track, a very experienced driver indeed, and that experience really was, I think, the significant factor in him winning the race, the feature race in Beijing, when others around him who were quicker, in fairness, but fell by the wayside or had problems which they weren't able to do anything about.
So we're a little over halfway in qualifying here at Taupo, this brand new motorsport park that has been developed especially with A1GP in mind, and the current situation is that France is at the top of the timesheets, ahead of New Zealand, host nation, looking to try and get pole position on their home turf. Then it's the Netherlands and Canada well up there, Germany, Switzerland, Ireland, South Africa in the top 10, as are Czech Republic and Italy. We're now into the 3rd segment of qualifying, and Italy has decided to go first. 10th position for them at the moment. They're trying to get past the likes of the Czech Republic and South Africa, and it's the very experienced Enrico Toccacello who's at the wheel. Now he's on his outlap. He's now, as he comes out of this corner, effectively begins his flying lap.
Indeed, and he's got effectively as well a clear track. Only one other car out on track, that's Pakistan, and they're pretty much now halfway around this lap, so nothing is going to affect Enrico Toccacello's 3rd qualifying segment, and hopefully it'll be a trouble-free and error-free lap as he goes through turn 3. He gets the back end out, but he's able to control it. That was under power and it wasn't too much of a problem. It's when it snaps and you haven't got the chance to catch the car. So that makes his way now all the way downhill, slight downhill it is, into turn 7.
Good to see that opposite lock being applied, the no traction control systems in A1GP, and it's up to the driver to correct it when it slides, and that was a beautiful example of it. And now he's coming through the fast turn 9. Look at the bumps, look at how it throws the car a little bit. He just touches the grass.
Yeah, that's the consequence. You saw the car bumping. In motor racing parlance, that's called ratcheting. It's the way the relationship of the spring and the shock absorber are, and if they're working out of harmony, that's what you get. You get a ratcheting effect, and that was the consequence, and why he clipped the outside of the corner and kicked up the dust.
He does it again out of turn 11, but he's able to keep the power on. You saw the bump there coming down that long straight. Just about half a mile of straight before they're onto the brakes into 12, 13 and 14, the last 3 corners of the lap. It's a relatively short lap. Let's see what the lap time's like. Where does it put him? Keeps him in 10th. No improvement for Enrico Toccacello.
All 3 laps have been in 1 minute 15.8, 1 minute 15.5, 1 minute 15.7. There you see it. That's a full-blown power oversteer. In other words, the steering is being controlled by the back wheels, which are being controlled by the driver's foot.
Yeah, so a real bit of throttle control required, and steering control as well from Enrico Toccacello, but he sorts it out well.
He actually kicked up a bit of dust going through turn 3 on a slow down lap, just to add injury.
Team India onto a hot lap now as well. Lorraine Karthikeyan, who has been pretty impressive here this weekend so far, but hasn't quite managed to translate that into qualifying pace as yet. This system of qualifying in A1GP is unique. It does take drivers, even those as experienced as Karthikeyan, a little bit of getting used to. Pakistan coming in, I don't think he actually did a hot lap there.
I'm not sure. I don't think we see a time for that 3rd sector there, unless it's probably the reason why. Oh yes, up at turn 9, and all over the place. And I mean, he just decides to abort the lap, save the tyres as much as you can, and just getting caught out by the bumps on the entry into turn 9, and a wild ride for Team Pakistan. Noor Ali, the driver.
So how's Narain Karthikeyan getting on here? Let's watch him. He's about halfway round the lap, coming up to that tight corner, leading onto the long straight, trying to keep it tidy. Listen to the throttle. Pretty smooth application of the power coming out. Just a kiss on the dust on the outside, but no problem.
Quickest lap for India to date, 1 minute 16.3. Compare that to this morning, 1 minute 14.6. A lot of time in Karthikeyan and in this Team India car. So far, it hasn't translated into a lap time in the first 2 qualifying segments. It's going to do better here.
Let's see where it puts him up to 11th. That's a big jump, and he's done a 1 minute 15.2. That's a bit more like it.
Still a long way, 0.6 of a second away from what he did this morning. So it's going to be, I think, a disappointment for India. The potential was there, certainly, for a top 3 grid position for the sprint race. Unless he could do something quite magical in the 4th segment, he's going to find himself probably in the bottom half of the top 10 of the grid for Sunday's sprint.
Yes, but as we said before, this system of qualifying, you almost have to do it once, and this is his first opportunity to really get to grips with it before you fully understand how it all works, particularly on tyres that he's not at all familiar with, in a car that he's never driven before. So more to come, I'm sure, from Team India, and Narain Karthikeyan will have a good think about it. There's the car that's quickest so far. It is the French machine. And of course, France dominated the first season of A1GP. They really had a fantastic year, taking the title very, very comfortably, some 51 points ahead of their nearest rivals, which were Team Switzerland. Hasn't been quite the same situation for them this year. They've been up there and they're still 4th in the points. But Loic Duval showing their best qualifying performance to date. Here is Team Lebanon just going across the line to start effectively only their 2nd lap, because they didn't do a lap in the 1st segment.
No, they got it all wrong in the 1st segment. So Alex Khatib looks more in control. Maybe there's a little bit of nerves at the start of this qualifying segment. Not really, again, like Narain Karthikeyan, not quite prepared for what he was having to deal with. That's the back of the car, a little bit more snappy than we saw from Team Italy a few moments earlier. But again, a lot less experience from Alex Khatib than that of Enrico Toccocello, who's able to play things with the car. Again, lock up into turn 7, just shaving away those thousands of seconds from his potential lap time.
So Team Lebanon representing the Arab nations in A1GP. They've had 4 different drivers this year: Basil Shaban, Khalil Bashir, Graham Rahal, and now Alex Khatib. And Alex, who's not really very experienced, he's done some Formula 4, some Formula 3, but he hasn't been racing for many seasons at all. And he's really applying himself this weekend, trying to learn as much as possible in a short space of time, dealing with it pretty well. We've seen a few little slip-ups from him, but basically he's looked pretty good. His lines have looked effective. Yeah,
he says having to step up, it's quite a big step up, not just on a new racetrack, but in a much more complex kind of racing car, a much heavier racing car. As we look down as the car comes out of turn 14, and this hopefully will be a further improvement for Lebanon. That's a 1:16.6, so he has made an improvement at lap time, but in real terms it's a long way from where he was this morning.
Yeah, but he's moved ahead of China and Pakistan now, so from being last he's now got past a couple of other cars. Here's Salvador Duran for Team Mexico, and Mexico of course will also host a race. He's gone 13th, so not much change. He was 14th after that 2nd segment.
I mean, this is very untypical of Salvador Duran. He's normally one of the guys you're going to say is a potential pole sitter. He's naturally a very quick, he's an aggressive driver, but something hasn't hooked up this weekend with Mexico, whether it's the car and driver or whether it's just one of those two. We haven't been able to find that out yet.
4.5 minutes remain in this 3rd and penultimate segment of qualifying. France, New Zealand, the top 2. New Zealand waiting patiently in the pits at the moment, waiting for the correct moment, they hope, to come out and get a clear lap in. Here's Singapore, Christian Murchison.
Whoa!
Oh, big slide for Christian Murchison.
Well, that is the biggest slide we have seen, but still keep it on the racetrack. Christian Murchison, the back end snapped, and he virtually had the lock stops fully occupied as he came through turn 9. He got it all gathered up. Quick reactions from the Singapore driver, and well, that'll be a heart-in-the-mouth moment for him. He's probably forgotten about it already, but scary moment for Murchison.
Great pictures for us, though. The young man who was born in Singapore, lives in Australia, no doubt looking forward to the race at Eastern Creek in 2 weeks' time to see what he can do there. He's been in the points already, and he would love to do it again this weekend. Before that one, he's 15th now, lost a bit of time on that lap.
Yeah, that moment, let's look at it again here. The back end bounces, and he manages to gather it up. He did extremely well, because many drivers have had problems not as severe as that and gone off track. So good job from Christian Murchison, but it did cost him about half a second.
Czech Republic down in 9th place at the moment, fastest on Friday afternoon. But Thomas Enger, who'll be jetting like one or two other drivers, including Salvador Duran, to Daytona between this race in New Zealand and the next in Australia. They're racing in the Daytona 24-hour event. Well, he's here qualifying in the A1GP event at Taupo, and at the moment he's trying to improve on 9th.
So Thomas Enger rings the neck of the Czech Republic's car as he turns left into turn 14, comes across start-finish line, and a 1:16.244. That's the slowest of the 3 qualifying runs from Thomas Enger. Well, I can tell you one thing, by the time Thomas Enger returns to Australia, it'll not be the Daytona 24 hours he thinks he's done, it'll be the Daytona 48 hours. He'll be tired by the time he gets to Eastern Creek in Sydney. He
will indeed, but we'll have to see how he does. Germany's just gone onto a lap, I noticed, looking out of our window. Looking at China, though, at the moment. I'm hoping Tung's certainly trying pretty hard.
Yeah, he ran the car too wide, in my view, coming out of turn 8. Compromised his position into turn 9, and his turn 9 is a more critical corner, and that's the corner that's going to bite you.
A lot of cars coming out in the closing stages, John. Less than 2 minutes to go. A big long line of South Africa, New Zealand, France just come out on track as well.
GBR's there, Canada. So, well, it's inevitable. It's 1 minute, just under 2 minutes remaining, and a question of finding track position as Johnny Reid makes his way around the Indonesia car, trying to keep up with France.
Germany's on a very quick lap. Let's see what China have done. They improve up to 18th, so that's a bit of a gain in performance, but Germany's on a quick one here. 2/10 up on the fastest lap of the day in individual terms. Let's see if he can keep it going.
Well, he certainly had the back end dancing around the front of the car as he came through turn 11. Look at that, 0.541 up. I remember Germany currently, after 2 runs, showing in 5th position. Best lap, 1 minute, 14.726. He needs to improve on that lap time to see him consolidate a potential pole position.
Nico Hülkenberg for Team Germany across the line. He goes fastest, and it's a 1:14.146 individual lap time. That's the quickest time of anyone so far.
The quickest time all weekend by 0.02 of a second. Australia have spun Carl Reindler, but that is a brilliant lap from Nico Hülkenberg, and he's now got a 14.7 and a 14.1 in the bin. So that's really throwing the gauntlet down. Let's look and see what happens to Australia. All over the place coming through turn 2, and eventually gives up and just lets it spin harmlessly into the grass on the inside of the track. Or the outside, as the case may be.
Let's not forget that New Zealand and France are still both in the hunt for pole position here, particularly New Zealand, who had a very rapid lap in the previous segment. And now Loic Duval for Team France is very quick on the first sector of the lap.
He looks to be quickest of all so far in sector 1. Comes out of turn 7, picks his line out of the corner. Now just really glides the car through turn 8, keeps the car to the left of the track, makes the cut back to get through turn 9, just catches the dust. Somebody ahead of him kicked up a lot of dust. That's distracting.
New Zealand didn't get a very good first sector time in on this lap, so they I don't think are going to challenge. So it's France that we're watching to see whether France can go back ahead of Germany. Checker flag's about to come out, but of course they get to finish off their lap. He's up by 39 thousandths of a second. It's going to be a very close run thing here as to whether France can reclaim the top spot. He's just got to deal with this last little sequence, clamber over the curbs and get the power on.
Yes, it looked a little bit unstable going through turn 13, but it's pretty good all the way around. France, 1 minute 14.184, not quite enough by 37 thousandths of a second. Germany have captured the provisional pole, whereas New Zealand still haven't come around to complete the lap. Johnny Reid, the only other driver currently, he's done a 15.2. He stays in 3rd, 2nd row of the grid.
Canada up to 6th place. No, in fact, they've dropped effectively as a result. They were 4th before the last run. Switzerland have popped up to 4th.
Well, look at Canada. That's the reason why Canada dropped. He not only dropped positions, he dropped the car off the track. A massive slide from the back of the Canadian car coming through turn 9.
Netherlands have dropped a place. I haven't seen them finish off their lap, actually.
They haven't finished the lap, in fact.
No, so I'm not sure what happened to the Netherlands there, but they're still in 5th place, but they haven't done a 3rd lap. There's the new fastest man. It is Nico Hülkenberg for Team Germany. He's won races. He leads the points by 12 at the moment for the German nation, but he's not yet had a pole position. So let's wait and see whether he's going to be able to hold on to that. Some of the cars making their way back in. It's been another exciting session. Let's get back down to the pits for an update from Simon Hill.
Well, the news again was all about tyres. All of the obvious front runners, certainly France, Germany and New Zealand, were running on new tyres, as you would have expected. Very, very sort of matter-of-fact look from Christian Murchison as I walk past his carriage, just to say it's just what we do, racing drivers. So all pretty calm and collected, and I think it's going to be an absolutely scintillating final session. Lee.
Thanks, Simon. Never mind.
Track has existed here for many years, but we've now got this new track. It's an international circuit homologated by the FIA, and we're going to see a final 15 minutes which will determine the pole position for the sprint race on Sunday. And at the moment it's the A1 points leader, Team Germany, on top, but France and New Zealand are both very much in the hunt. Switzerland perhaps as well, although they don't have one lap that's quite as quick, so I don't think Switzerland's going to be able to challenge, but fourth place nonetheless for Team Switzerland at the moment is impressive.
Well, they've done 2 laps in 1 minute 14.8, 1 minute 14.7, so if they aren't going to get on the front row of the grid, they could certainly violation speeding. It's not just that, well, I'll tell you about that later, but France and Germany clearly very strong, but New Zealand, Switzerland and the Netherlands, but I was going to say not outside chance. Canada, its second and third segment, our qualifyings were not particularly up to speed.
Let's hope the Netherlands car gets fired up this time, because they obviously had problems, as we heard from Lee Mackenzie. Alan van der Merwe there, waiting. He's 7th currently. They're still making some changes to the front suspension, working on the front dampers, front springs in there as well, of course. So they may be changing springs or changing ride heights.
It's maybe that, but probably it's bump rubber and packer, because that's a bit of an art in itself, the whole thing of supporting a car. What you try to do is run the car with rake, so as in the lower speed corners you get lots of bite on the entry to a corner. And then as the car progresses in speed, you want the car to start to level out. And of course, it's a balancing act with bump rubber, packer and spacer, as well as whatever the damper settings and spring choices you have.
So, Nur Ali, first out onto the track once again to complete his 4th qualifying segment. He didn't do a 3rd one because he messed up the lap, remember, and came into the pits. So, effectively, he'll only have 3 times in the book, but it's the best 2 that are added together.
Yeah, see the wild ride going through turn 9, and he wisely just called that run off, came back into the pits, into turn 5, and then the acceleration. It's a gradual slope, not really a hill. Get down to 4th gear, then back. And there he goes. Well, and this is trouble. He's beached. He's not going to get that car out of there. They're going to have to bring this session. Certainly it'll be a statutory yellow flag under that, but that car, it may even be red flag, because he's not going to get the car moved away, so they may have to red flag this session to enable that car to be pulled to safety. It's too close to the side of the racetrack, and there you can see that everybody in the pits, the Pakistan pits, and now we're on TV as well. We didn't need that, did we?
Well, as you say, they're going to have to do something to move that car, because it is very vulnerable. It's right on the outside of turn number 7. He's got it stuck. It's not going anywhere.
Well, to me, it's a bit of a no-brainer. I mean, through the red flag, get the car removed to safety, and let everybody else get underway. There's no marshals near to the car, and just a simple error of driving on the part of Nur Ali, just locked up and had the brakes on the turn, and not enough grip in the rear of the car. And he's sitting there, and gradually marshals are now making their way to the car, but it's only 2 of them as they run across the grass to get, and there's others coming from all over the circuit. So it's an invasion of marshals now, 5 of them all together, but by the time they get to Nur Ali, they're going to be absolutely knackered. They're going to be out of breath. They're not used to doing this kind of thing. Being a marshal isn't about running 150 or 200 yards to get to a car.
No, well, the first 2 have got there, but there's plenty more on the way. The cavalry will be there in just a moment. Here we go, a few more guys turning up. He's been running with the fire extinguisher. That's even harder work.
I tell you, I don't know what the engine temperatures are going to be in this car. Hopefully the engine, he's shut the engine down, he might get it bump started, but the car has been literally, the floor of the car has been caught between where the grass ends and the gravel begins. So he's now got him going. Let's see if they can bump start him, and there he goes. Well, he got it running. Well done, Nur Ali. So the clock didn't stop. We've now just got 11 minutes of the session remaining. That might change the plans of a few people in the pit lane.
Yep, at least it means that not too much time has been lost, though, because remember, most people haven't been coming out until halfway through the session. There've been 1 or 2, but normally we've been waiting till 7.5 minutes before we're really seeing the first contenders come out. So I don't think it's going to mess people up too much. And these are the boys who did the hard work. Many congratulations to the marshals.
Well, I mean, there's no point in laughing about it, because these guys work their hearts out. They do it for free, and without marshals like that, there wouldn't be any motorsport.
Absolutely right. They didn't deserve that. They'd run miles as well from their marshalling post to get to that car. So well done to those guys. And they've kept this session running. They've meant that there hasn't been a big delay. And they deserve a drink this evening, I think, from maybe from Team Pakistan, because they got their car back safely.
But they're a dry nation, Ben.
That's true. Very good point, John. So Noah Ali makes his way back into the pits, and we're waiting for any more cars to come out in this fourth and final qualifying segment. Germany, remember, fastest currently from France and New Zealand.
So it's all a bit static in the pit lane. Nobody really attempting to go out on track, and the clock's still ticking away. We're just under 10 minutes of the session remaining. And, well, Noor Ali will make his way back if he hasn't already made it into the pit lane, and have to look at the team and say, sorry guys, I let you down. 2 segments of qualifying we could have improved. We could have beaten possibly Lebanon. Australia, I think, a little bit too far out of reach, but nonetheless, disappointment for Pakistan that on 2 of those segments, down to the driver error, that they didn't get times.
Well, New Zealand with a very quick time in the books, remember. Looking forward to try and challenge. They're 3rd currently. Boys have got a story to talk about now, and they'll be celebrating that one. Australia, actually, you mentioned Australia just now. They are well down. They're down in 20th position. Long, long way down. We wouldn't expect them to be that far down. But there is Karl Reindler, about to head out onto track now. Didn't get a time in last time because he went off across the grass, if you remember. So he's got to try and drag something pretty impressive out here.
Yeah, unfortunately for Australia, I mean, it's a nation with a great motorsport heritage, but they've never really found the level of performance or consistency that's been required to see them consistently in the points and certainly up on the podium. And with a fairly wide-ranging variety of drivers available, of which Ryan Briscoe probably is the most notable in this second series of A1GP. He's now gone off to other series around the world, and Karl Reindlinger being screwed back into the car and not really being able to deliver for Australia. Currently 20th of 22 cars on the grid.
Yes, less experienced than Ryan Briscoe. He's been racing in British F3 the last couple of years, but he did get that podium finish. He got a podium this year in Beijing by basically staying out of trouble when other people didn't, and so that was a good solid performance by Reindler. But he's now got to show that he can get the pace out of the car as well. There is Sebastian Buemi. He's already shown he can get some pace out of the Swiss car, and there's patiently waiting Nico Hülkenberg too. Is this going to be Germany's first pole position in A1GP? Leading the points, but will it be pole? That's the question. He looks pretty calm at the moment.
Well, it is inevitable at some point that Nico Hülkenberg will secure a pole for the sprint race. He is a young man who is outstanding. His impressions on me as a race driver, and the way he goes about it again on Friday morning, as we've got a problem there for Mexico. They've got that clutch problem. They're trying to bump start the car, but it doesn't look like it's difficult with a sequential gearbox operated by pedals to be able to click it into gear, and that's what they've been trying to do as Australia battles its way through turn 4 into turn 5.
Yep, see how clean he can keep it. Karl Reindler, the 21-year-old from Perth, obviously looking forward to the home race in a couple of weeks' time at Eastern Creek, just outside Sydney on the other side of Australia. And let's see if he can try and just pick something up in the final segment of qualifying here that will move Australia past the likes of China and Singapore. They're ahead of them at the moment.
They got Mexico going. They bump started him. He's got no clutch. He can't operate a clutch pedal, so he can pull the gears up and down without any difficulty whatsoever. Just it means that the actual clutch pedal, which he needs only to get out of the pits, shouldn't really affect him too much. So, psychologically, yes. Physically, no.
So yeah, once he's on track, he's okay. This is Australia's final hot lap. Let's see how he gets the last little sequence of corners here. Got to be neat and tidy over the curbs, not run too deep into the corner. That looks quite good so far. And then he's got the short run to the start-finish line. He's in 20th place at the moment. Does this improve? No, it doesn't. It keeps him in 20th.
And you could see really the difference between Australia and those front-running cars. He wasn't able to carry the speed into those final 3 turns as opposed to here, Narain Karthikeyan for India. India down in 15th place, best lap of 15.221. I would like to think Narain Karthikeyan could do something similar to what he did this morning. He did a 14.6, so the potential's there. It's just a question of can he put the package together for this final time in qualifying.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one. Very good first sector time. So he's on the grass again coming out of turn 9, but he kept his foot hard on the throttle.
Well, he has a reputation as being braver than Dick Tracy, and Narain Karthikeyan lets it run pretty wide in the mid part of turn 11, draws it back in. Gets a good clean exit, so maybe this will be a lap more representative of the talent of this young Indian driver.
Now, if he can keep that difference, he could well get up into the top 6 here, but top 6, top 8 perhaps. That would be a good improvement for Narain Karthikeyan. He's currently down in 11th place, I think it was, after that last run. No, a bit further, 15th place he was after that last segment. He's gone up to 7th. Good effort.
And a good 1 minute, 14.930. So his final lap getting close to the potential that India has had all weekend. A little bit of a lock-up into turn 7, not really affecting very much the turn into the car or losing very much time. This is where it got more tricky on the exit of turn 9. Again, flirting, and that did shave off 2 or 3 tenths of a second. So potentially he had a lap that was as good a lap as he did this morning.
Yeah, and that's his first qualifying session in an A1 car over. He has to sit and wait, see what everyone else does.
Mexico flirting with a spin. And of course, without any foot clutch, if he did spin, he would have been in trouble. But he got away with it. Salvador Duran lives to drive down the straight.
Mexico's on a relatively good lap. They may well be able to move up from their current 16th position. And that would be a good boost to the team that seems to have been struggling here a little bit. It will depend what everyone else does, of course. Yep, he's up to 12th.
And that's done without a clutch. As I mentioned, the clutch really is only of use to getting out of the pits. So, but it's a psychological thing, and Salvador Duran maybe a little bit more suspect to that as Alan van der Merwe rings the neck of South Africa, and he was too aggressive in turn 4, spins it through 360 degrees and reaches turn 5 pointing in the right direction.
Well, he certainly got full marks for trying, but he tried that little bit too hard. We've seen a few incidents at that section of the track this weekend.
But it really all went wrong because as he came out of turn 3 here, the car oversteering, he then took a brave decision to turn the car aggressively into 4, and that's what led to the spin.
So no improvement for South Africa. They're in 8th place and they're under threat, of course, from a few behind them now.
Watch, this is through 2, no sorry, this is through first 4. So it all began coming out of turn 2 and then into 3, 4, and he ended up, and that's a long old spin, but he got it back together, pointing in the right direction. But sadly for South Africa, they're not going to be any better now than 8th, 4th row of the grid, and it could get worse.
Could get worse, yes. Still a number of cars immediately behind them ready to go, including Ireland, Malaysia and Great Britain, who are big threats. So South Africa could pay dearly for that little error. Canada's on track at the moment. I think they'll be going on to their hot lap as they come past us. And Brazil currently on a hot lap themselves.
Yes, all their laps have been high 15s, mid-high 15s and a 16. So Rafael Matos, what is it going to do? Well, it puts him, stays in 12th place.
Yeah, so Brazil, well, just outside the top 10. It's a little better than they've qualified on 1 or 2 occasions, but not quite where they want to be. Team Germany onto track. So the man who's quickest so far decided to come out relatively early. I know there's only 2 minutes 50 seconds to go, but some of the other teams are waiting till the very last moment. And Dutch cars fired up all right this time.
Yes, got the Holland back out. But Nico Hulkenberg very anxious indeed to get ahead of the Malaysia car. Went around the outside as they came through turn 3. So nothing much ahead of Hulkenberg except Brazil, who have completed a lap. So Hulkenberg's on an out lap. He'll be well, it'll not really affect him at all because Brazil will, on the spinner up at turn 9, again another car has spun up at turn 9. It's facing the wrong way. He's now done a donut in the middle of the track to get facing the right way. Blue smoke pours off the back tires and another car went through. We don't know which car that was. Hopefully we'll get it for you on replay.
So Team Canada now. Let's see whether James Hinchcliffe is able to improve. 6th position at the moment. He's got some potential here, but really he's trying to protect that top 6 place. Not his best lap. Very consistent, but not his best lap there. He stays 6th.
It's his second best lap on a 15.1. So, well, I think James Hinchcliffe will be disappointed. It was the Czech Republic, Thomas Enger. He got it all wrong, and that's whose car we saw spinning in turn 9. And he was over the grass, very nearly caught the barrier, got it all gathered up, pointed back onto the track the wrong way. Then he had to do the donut. Watch for a car coming as there's it is, Brazil. He drove into the access road and spins around. Then there's Germany coming around, but this is the out lap for Germany, not the flying lap.
This is the flying lap. Now let's see what Nico Hulkenberg can do. Can he protect his pole position here, or is France and New Zealand in particular going to attack him? Good first sector time. Now he's got to try and maintain it through the rest of the lap.
Through turn 7, neat entry into the corner, gets the power on, no wasted energy, all going forward up to turn 9. This is the bogey corner. Careful. It didn't look as comfortable this run as it's done in previous runs, but he got it all cleanly through the corner in the end.
Yeah, just kicking up the dust a fraction on the outside. He keeps it neat and tidy on the entry to turn 11.
He may not have a new set of tyres on for this run. He may well have used his new tyres in earlier runs. We don't know that.
I think he had a new set.
He may well do with that gap, 0.656 of a second, and this could be sufficient for Nico Hülkenberg to take his first pole position in A1GP.
Let's see it out of the final corner. Here he comes, got to keep it neat and tidy. And Germany trying to hold on to pole position across the line. He does a 1:14.0. That could be enough to take pole position. A great effort by Nico Hülkenberg.
And again, the single fastest lap of the entire weekend goes to the young German. So David Sears not showing much emotion because he knows he has got to get his New Zealand car onto the front row of the grid. They've got to dispose this car. Luc Duval for France comes through turn 12, through 13, drops down into 14. He needs to do something very special, but it is actually Team G. He drives his lost potential 14.369. Whether he lost time or not, he still retains that. But it is the Netherlands in third place with a 14.367.
But Great Britain suddenly fastest on the first sector. Where's that come from? They've been struggling. He's down in 11th place, and now Robbie Kerr's putting in a quick lap.
If I was John Surtees, I would ask Robbie Kerr the same thing.
Well, he's got to still finish the lap off, and he's got a good chance to move up a few places. Remember, he's behind South Africa, and we saw what happened to South Africa a few moments ago. Definitely a chance to get well in the top 10 here. Let's see if he can maintain the pace through the last section. Good exit there. He's got up to 6th, a 1:14.5, a much faster lap by Robbie Kerr than he did in the earlier segments.
So Johnny Reid for New Zealand still, he's dropped down to 4th because the Netherlands have eclipsed him. He gets a chance to put himself back onto the front row of the grid. Potential pole position setter. New Zealand stay 3rd, 2nd row of the grid.
So he isn't on the front row, but he's well up there, and the fans are still applauding. New Zealand will start their home race from 3rd position. It's Germany and France that have taken the front row this time, and Team Germany have taken their first ever pole position in A1GP. Suitably enough, it's gone to Nico Hülkenberg, who's been the star perhaps of the second season of A1GP today. He really has been so impressive. So has this young man, Johnny Reid. But today he couldn't quite keep his car on the front row as he's done on the other previous occasions he's qualified. But nonetheless, to qualify 3rd is a brilliant effort with all the pressure of the home nation on his shoulders. Johnny Reid has delivered. He's got the 3rd fastest time. And a quick mention of the Netherlands, John. Fantastic effort from Jeroen Bleekemolen. He's popped up to 4th.
Yeah, I think that's an outstanding effort, but bearing in mind that they couldn't get the car fired up for that 3rd segment of qualifying to end up on the 2nd row of the grid. But really what hurt Johnny Reid and Team New Zealand was the third qualifying segment. They only did a 14.2, and it didn't give them enough margin to consolidate, so he starts on the 2nd row of the grid alongside Netherlands.